Hello, developers, and welcome to the PHP Community Corner, where we have conversations with members of the web development community. I'm your host, Scott Keck-Warren, and today we're talking with Gunnard Engebreth about his talks at PHPtek 2026. Gunnard began in software development during the dot-com boom of the 2000s in Atlanta, Georgia. The rapidly changing landscape of technology and needs created an environment full of learning opportunities. Beginning with Perl and moving quickly to PHP, he specializes in the modernization of legacy applications, APIs, and creating modern development team solutions. Gunnard believes in free open source software and has contributed to projects such as WordPress, the Devilbox, Discord PHP. As an author, Gunnard has written multiple articles for PHP Architect magazine, as well as 2 books from A-Press Publishing on PHP 8. Gunnard has also been a notable speaker at multiple conferences such as PHP Madison, Longhorn PHP, Techlahoma, and Chaos Carnival. Gunnard currently lives in the North Georgia mountains with his wife, 2 boys, and some assorted animals. Thank you, Gunnard, for finding some time to talk to us today.
Yeah, you are welcome.
Yeah. So I noticed that one of the things that you're going to be doing next year in 2026, or I guess it's this year since we're doing this recording in advance, is that you're going to be talking at PHPtek 2026. And one of the topics you're going to be talking about is the OWASP Top 10. Can you give us kind of a brief overview of what that is and why that's important for developers?
Sure. So first off, it's great to just go back to the PHPtek conference. There's tons of great people, great speakers. It's an amazing event. And this is a talk that I've given before, but it doesn't mean it's just rehashed information. The OWASP Top 10 actually changes every 3 to 4 years. Right now, currently, there's an RC for some of the latest information right now. If you want to go and be involved with that, you can check it out. But for anybody who doesn't know, like the OWASP is a open source organization. It's volunteer run. And what they do is they put out basically, at this point, they put out categories of the top security vulnerabilities that are out there in the world that us as software developers need to be aware of. It used to be just like, specific hacks here and there, but now they're just general categories of, they take everything that you hear and don't hear on the news and the headlines, and they classify them and say, here is what, if you have a priority list, if you have if you need some kind of top-down tier list of things, we're going to go through and give you the vulnerability iceberg, if you will, and here's what you need to focus on, at least, bare minimum. And so I came across this years ago, and I really feel like developers sometimes just miss the mark on watching out for security in their development. And rightfully so. We're given problems that are, that makes our heads turn, and we bash against the wall, and we talk to penguins, and we talk to, other things just to get something to work. The last thing on our mind is like, well, what if somebody types in, and 1 = 1 into the username box? Are they going to be able to hack in? It's like, we don't care. We just want this thing to work at this point. And what this talk specifically is about is like, you need to care, you need to be aware of it, and here's the easiest, it's lazy is in the title because it's kind of the laziest way. Like, if you don't need to worry about a whole bunch of specific things, here's some libraries, or here's what PHP has built in that will take away a lot of your research and time, and you can rely on this heavily to take some of that off of your shoulders. So hopefully the talk will get across some of these points about take it seriously, put it in the back of your mind, and use these tools that are available. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. That's kind of the point here, is help out your DevOps team, help out your if you have a red team or whatever at your organization, help those people out and give them a fighting chance of being able to, protect your software. And, nobody wants to be on the headlines with, a hack or loss of data. Nobody wants that.
Yeah, and I actually I bring these more to the front of the mind, like when we're doing code reviews, as like a like, well, have we thought about this piece? Because like it's usually like these are the things that have caused like the most trouble within like the last 4 or 5 years or whatever the time period is that they're using. And so I'm always like, well, are we doing better than like the average whatever? You know what I mean? Like, and because like my favorite example is like the number one like issue on like both the list from 2021 and 2025 was broken access control. And that's like so common, right? And like that's like my favorite thing to test for in our software is I'm just like, well, can I access with this with somebody who's not supposed to have access? Right? Like it's just like such a fast like oops, we made a mistake type situation.
And the thing with the security, just like the broken access control, like it has necessarily nothing to do with SQL injection. So if you focus all your time and effort on, ensuring that you're protecting against injections, but you go into inspect elements, you replace, ID equals 2 with ID equals 3, and all of a sudden you're in somebody else's account. It's like, oh, I forgot all about that.
Right.
And go ahead. Stop.
No, I'm sorry. I always I also find it very interesting to like look at the list and like see how it's because so as we're talking, like they're in that release candidate phase for like the new list of them, and like it's fascinating to me to like see because like they're always like shifting, like they like I have like 10 and they like move around a lot, but like broken access control has been at the top for a while. But the one that I find really fascinating is like injection is like slowly drifting its way down because like we have better and better tools to like prevent that, right? Like PDO makes it really hard for us to to not have like an injection thing. But is it so like when you look at like the list of them, like what is it you usually find like developers have a hard time getting their heads around?
So it's really the two that I really focus on, and I see are injection and also just prepared statements. I think there's two things like I could just put at the top of the list for developers when submitting a PR is like, are you checking $session underscore username or $session underscore comment from user? Like it's kind of like the rules from the TV show House. It's like never trust a user. Like no, whatever they're typing in, just consider it horrible. And you need to look at it. You don't just set it equal to username or password and carry on with it. It's like everything needs to be sanitized, checked, make sure it's not null, make sure it's not empty. Like there's some basic things that you need to do. Also, with SQL queries, the one thing that it seems, and I mean, I've been a victim to it too. Like it didn't really sink in that prepared statements just squash all of this. Like injection basically goes away if you're using prepared statements. And it actually made more sense to me in like researching some of these talks that I've done on this is prepared statements squash this all because it takes two different paths to communicate with the database. There's one path that says like, what are we trying to do with this query? What's the query text? Like select and where, like all of the kind of adjectives, the verbs, and that gets sent down one path to the database. And then all the question marks that you're sending in your prepared statement, all the variables get sent as literals, like literally this. So they are two separate lines of communication with the database. And so if you're saying like, select star from user where username equals, and the malicious hacker is saying, admin space dash dash. So select where username equals admin and ignore everything else, comment out everything else. The parser, like PHP and MySQL, PHP mainly, if you're sending that query and you send admin with a couple ticks on it to escape the ticks that you're putting in and that MySQL and PHP are putting in, the parser will get confused by those ticks, and that's where the hacker will be allowed to add in the word admin and then the comment. Now, when you send it with a prepared statement, you're sending literally admin space dash dash as what you're looking for in the username table. And so you're going to come back with nobody with admin dash dash is a username. So this is how it can be the same information. The hacker can be successful over here, where they're not using a prepared statement, and then use the exact same payload, the exact same text in a query where they're using prepared statements, and it will fail because different data is being sent to the database. So, when I heard that, I'm like, well, okay, that makes sense why prepared statements, kill this whole thing and why we should always just be using them. When I see a PR that has raw, like it goes out of its way to make raw MySQL queries, it's like, okay, can we try this again? Like, can we do better? We have a whole system set up to, type less things and get the results back and to make them secure. So let's do this. So I want to get that across too, is that prepared statements aren't just, it's just typing so many different things. Why can't I just do the one query I need? Or like, it's too complex, I'll have to break it up into different things. Okay, well, would you rather do that or lose, 20 million records in a database hack? Like, because you didn't make it 5 lines instead of 3. Like, let's put some priorities in there and make some things secure.
Yeah, and I guess that's one of the things I don't ever think about is that it is like a separate communication line. Like that is like a good important factoid for people who are like tuning into this, is like that's the reason that it's so much better, right? Is that like it literally, like the database is going to do this piece of it just so much better than we ever could, right? Because it's like I'm only doing this one thing, whereas we're doing like a million things.
And when you look at it, it doesn't really make sense. It's like, well, you're just replacing it with a question mark and then filling it in back later with the variable you want. Like, that's the same thing, but
yeah,
it actually does communicate differently. So I've just never heard that explained before by somebody,
Yeah.
So
it's always fascinating to me too that we have because there's all these like base level understanding of database pieces that like developers have, and then like there's these things where it's like, well, this is actually how it works, and then like so many people just don't even have an understand, and I get it, right? Like it's just like one more thing to have to learn, but it is like an important piece. Like, well, this is why it's important that we know how to do this. I was just reading about like how transactions are are kept internally so that like they work properly, and it's like mind-numbingly simple, but then like it has to, there's all this like background data that it has to deal with, but it's just like, oh yeah, this is just like a simple solution to like transactions and how complex they can be. Yeah.
It's only until you run across a problem that you have like nothing makes sense and you're going down, and then you get like knee deep in a manual somewhere and you're like, oh, that's the exact reason why.
Yeah.
It's like there's a limit 50 and we needed 51. Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Like nobody knew, and nobody knew this.
Yeah. But the one that killed me is like we had like a this is really like inside baseball. We had a group that then we did like a concatenation on, and it like just cut off for some reason, and it's because like there's a maximum like length to like group concat, and we're just like, oh, but it took us like 2 days to figure that out. Yeah. So I think like the thing that I find most fascinating about like the new 2025 list, and I'm curious to see what your take on this is, that like one of the things that they've added is the software supply chain failures, which is like a fascinating piece of like the changes. Are you going to talk about that a little bit in your talk, or?
Well, yes and no. Like, yes, but it's one of those like it's clearly referencing third party situations, and it's kind of like the NPM thing that's popping its head up almost every week now, which is, oh, somebody put some malicious code into, a huge, massively, digested or ingested, feature or, NPM package that everybody uses. Nobody noticed this, and everybody's now vulnerable because of it. And so I know I could probably say it's 50-50. I'd hope at least it's 50-50 people who are like, yeah, just, NPM install whatever you need. We got stuff out there for it. And the other half is like, no, stop, don't. Because you're just trusting bajillion strangers with having code in your code. And I see both sides of it. That's actually what this talk is about, is like, well, use the stuff that's already out there that people have written. So it's kind of one of those, like, trust but verify. Like, use it, make sure it's okay. And there are tools out there like Akita, and there's lots of tools now that will go through your repo and GitHub, check your code, make sure that there's no CVEs out there against any of the packages that you have, and will alert you if there are any. So that feels more reactive than proactive. Proactive is not using anything at all and keeping all your code internal and in-house. But then, you lose the benefit of, an NPM or the community and people that have already spent months and years doing this stuff better than you can, than you can right now. Like, given time, anyone can do it. But that's just one of those things. Like, it should be, it's on the list. It's number 3, and it should be there because it's taken down and messed up a lot of things. It's something to be aware of, but is it something that you can just say, oh, use prepared statements for? No, you just kind of have to scan every single day. You don't have to go and check all the websites yourself. There are tools that'll help you stay on top of these things, but that doesn't mean that you might not be affected. You'll just be aware of it, hopefully sooner than later, or at least know a plan of action to get out of it that you can tell your boss and be that person, instead of like, what do you mean it's down? Well, let's just reboot it. Hopefully you'll be aware of those things. But no, that's an interesting addition. And I think it's just there because there's not a real solution to it, but it is a problem and you need to be aware of it when, because a lot of times we get, let's say in PHP, time zones are, great, and switching between them and working with time is a fabulous feature in PHP. But let's say that there's, this one-off package that solves the problem that you have with creating a calendar. And it does it exactly what you want, but there's only like 100 people that use it. It was, end of life 5 years ago, but it works great. It's like, this is what you need to, as a developer, you're like, this is perfect. It works. I love it. As anybody above you, like in your organization, they might have the thought of like, no, we can't use this. It is too risky at this point. And that's the awareness, and that's the thinking that is the more proactive thought. It's like, yes, it solves your problem, but it's not appropriate to use at this time. we can find a better way to do this. So that's going to be a problem that's going to be around for a while, if not forever. And the immediate solution is not that readily available.
Yeah, and we at work we use Akito to find like problems, and thankfully it's never found anything where it's like, there's like a critical security vulnerability in like one of these packages that you have, because we try to keep it up to date, all of our stuff up to date anyways, but like it is a terrifying piece that like somebody can just go in there and be like, oh yeah, I've like took over this one person's, like a maintainer of a package's access to GitHub, and now I can just put whatever I want in there, and we're not going to notice. Yeah, I mean, like most people aren't going to notice. So,
and I think this the long-term solution to that also is kind of on GitHub's part, and also maintainers. Like, there needs to be a better way to deal with repos that just end up dying or go unmaintained or something like that. Right now, it's pretty much community based. Somebody wants to take over a repo, they have to go through a process like asking. It's kind of a nice social process of like asking about it, doing this, and taking it over and being responsible that way. But there needs to be a way to like to handle it better. I don't have that answer, obviously.
Yeah,
because I just sound like I'm rambling on this. I don't know what to do about it, but it's something that exists, and if that were to be solved, a lot of this would be easier to mitigate and be aware of and control.
Yeah. We'll be back after this word from our partners. Every app builds up technical debt over time. It's the unfortunate price that we pay for shipping new features and moving fast. When we build up too much of it, though, it can start to impact how we work. team velocity suffers, bugs become more frequent and take longer to fix, and everyone starts to get a little bit frustrated. The key to managing debt is to measure it. A credit score can help you understand how well you're managing your debt. And now there's a credit score for technical debt. Go to phpscore.com to get a free technical debt score and monitoring for all of your PHP applications today. Head over to phpscore.com and get control over your technical debt. So and that all sounds like a really interesting talk. I'm looking forward to trying to go see that, assuming that I'm not also talking at the same time. That's always like the challenging part of these. But the other thing you're going to be talking about is functional programming in PHP. Can you give us like a brief overview on that?
Yeah. My history with programming starts with functional because I've been doing this for like 30 years. So this was before the dawn of like, before the dawn of PHP even, but like how OOP is the way and how everything should go. I was writing things that I would consider factories, before the concept of a factory was there. I was writing things. I was like, I'm doing this thing a whole lot, but I'm just changing it a little bit. So let me write this thing that does that builds these things, but changes them with the variable I throw at it. And so the concept of like the OOP concept and the functional concept has kind of divided a lot of the programming world, and most people jumped on OOP. And what I'm trying to show with this is that you don't have to necessarily be in one camp or the other. There's a lot of use in functional programming besides just like, a singleton, like it's just a one-off thing we're doing over here. Functional programming doesn't have to be in the realm of also like, like Rust or like these really low level like languages. Functional programming could be a way to solve the problems that you have easily without being messy. We're not just going to include a functions.php and have all of these, one-off things like we used to back in 1991. But we're going to take a look at writing single, purposeful, reusable functions that don't cause us to go down the path of writing, or implementing a ton of OOP things. We don't need to have a whole Laravel install or install, Composer install something if we're just trying to do one or two little features here and there. So that's kind of the basis of it, is like, it's not a dirty word. It's not a scary word. Some of the like unks like me who've been around will hopefully look at it and go, oh yeah, like this is how I used to think, and now I've changed a whole bunch of ways because of how we've been forced to, especially if you're like in the Laravel world. Like if you're even newer in the Laravel world, you've never thought about this kind of stuff before because it's not how you do it. So just trying to get that out there again, that functional programming isn't just crazy low level mathematical stuff that is set aside over here. Like we can use it too in our daily lives.
Yeah, and the thing I always try to think about it is like it's very powerful, especially for like in user space, right? Like there's a lot of like times where I'm just like, I can solve this easily by just chaining a bunch of functions together, and then there you go. And so it doesn't have to be like an all or I'm a very much a like OOP does what it's good at, and functional programming does what it's good at. And there's like my code base is a mix of the two essentially, like wherever I see those pieces.
Yeah, whenever I get too complicated in a function or a method I'm writing, like it does more than one specific thing, I start to like the anxiety starts to build in me. I'm like, but what if I need something like this again that's different, And I'm like, well, how can I take a step back and make this even more versatile and usable? And that's when I get like the chain mentality of like, do step one, do step two, do step three, and like it's so much easier. It's easier to read, and this is all my personal belief, but you can pass it off to a developer and they can actually read it, understand it, see the logic in how things should flow, and work from there. So I'm a little biased to it, but that's again, that's just how I came up kind of programming. So that's how my mind was set in how, things should work.
All right. So I have to ask you about the cow. Like so why are the cows? Like how is it that you guys are why is it you guys have decided to have cows, and what do they bring to your family?
So yeah, my wife and I moved up here to North Georgia in the Blue Ridge Mountains about 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And it's like 6 acres, and there's already a built-in, pasture area and everything. And we've only owned dogs really our lives, and we're up here in the wilderness in the mountains. And just one of those, like, it's one of those like decisions and things in life you can't really prepare or plan for. And when opportunities come up to buy a cow with money that you have, like when timing is right and a cow presents itself, you need to buy that cow. So we're like, all right, we'll figure it out. Like, we're not going to let this cow die. Like, we know that we can do that much, but like, we're going to figure it out. And so it was, we've had cows, we've had goats, we still have a pig, we've had other pigs. I've built pig fences. I've chased pigs and got them back in the fence. I've chased cows to my neighbor's yard and tried to get them back into the fence, got them back. This is all those things where it's like, selfishly, it's fun, it's cool. It's kind of like, man, like getting dirty, doing stuff, but also it allows me the time to like get away from a screen, from thinking, from doing all this stuff. I can worry about, this dang pig and getting it back in its cage. And also I can have I can spin my cycles in my head and process a lot of stuff subconsciously. It's great to go out every morning and, get a bale of hay and give it to the cow and dump some food in the bowl and make sure there's water. Like, just do these kind of things, collect eggs. I come back every morning with, 4 to 6 eggs in my pocket, and, and put them in their egg cartons and get them ready. It's just one of those things that I really enjoy now, that takes me away from this, because sometimes I'm even out there like on a meeting, on a call, a Teams call for work, and I'm like, moving, stepping over cow poop and doing all this stuff, and they're talking about AWS environments, and it's just one of those like, okay, it really allows me to get away while I'm out there. So I enjoy it. The cows are fine. We just had a calf the other day on Thanksgiving, so now we're hopefully going to get some milk. We'll be, drinking that and enjoying it. But I like to live a life that is, deep in one thing and completely opposite. Keep them guessing, but also it keeps me, on my toes, because I have no clue how to do any of this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm learning every day.
I always find it interesting talking, because I've had several conversations with other developers where, like, because a lot of what we do is very not tactical, right? It's like a lot of like moving atoms around, and we're not really doing, like, there's no tangible like result to like what we build. But then there's these like things that they do off screen that are very, like woodwork. I've talked to woodworkers and musicians, and like, and it's always interesting to hear like, well, I spend a lot of time in like, computer space, and now I want to go out and do something that actually like I can like can finish and can like see like, physically see like the end result of. So that's always really fascinating to me. So I do appreciate you finding some time to talk to us today. Is there anything else you want to direct our listeners to before I let you go?
Let's see. I have 2 books that I've written. I actually wrote them. This was like before AI, so I feel like I got in right before people start accusing people of not writing stuff. But 2 books on PHP. You can just type in Gunnard into Amazon. There's not many of us out there, and my name will pop up. One of them is on PHP 8 and how that came to be. I spent a lot of time researching the internals, communications back and forth. I read a lot of emails, and just kind of bridged the gap between like who proposed it, who not opposed it, but who commented, and the story of how each one of those RFCs came to be actual features in PHP 8. I enjoyed it. I thought it was really interesting. And then another one, just basics on PHP 8. Give it to your 12-year-old cousin who doesn't know what to do in life, or is trying to pick up Python and learn that. Give them a PHP book instead. send them the right way. But it's just, your basic learn something from scratch, build a CRUD, and keep going from there. So yeah, that's about it.
All right. And there'll be links in the description for this to your website, which I do believe has links to those things. So that way you can get the Amazon affiliate credit. So check out his website. Go from there.
If I'm worth any weight in my salt, I have those links there. If not, then shame on me.
Yeah. All right. So thank you. I do appreciate all your time today. And I look forward to seeing you at Tech. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep, you too.
Yeah. So I had to say another heartfelt thank you to Gunnard for all of his time, as well as yours for listening. If you're not already a subscriber, make sure you subscribe with whatever your preferred method is, so you can get the episodes as soon as they're released, and maybe share this post with a coworker so they can learn about some of the cool talks that are going on at PHPtek 2026. Tickets are available. This podcast is available both in an audio version on the PHP Architect website, as well as a video version on our YouTube channel. This is Scott Keck-Warren for the PHP Architect Community Corner, signing off, and reminding you to keep listening, keep coding, and keep reading.